All right, I will say good morning. Good morning. Let us begin by thanking all of our sponsors for this morning. Sure to thank our Talmud Torah sponsors for the month of Menachem Av, the Tilson and Wohl families, for dedicating all of the Shirman Drashos this month from Eretz YIsrael, sending their love from Eretz YIsrael and inviting us in Eretz Hashem to come and join them. Our Daf Yomi sponsors for today, Dovid Rivky Flamm, in honor of the Selfless volunteers of Chaverim and Hatzalah, for helping Am Yisrael every day around the clock, and Baruch Hashem just yesterday for helping to find little Tzion Maron in Arizona, Baruch Hashem, who was returned to his family safely. It's always important to take stock and to thank the Selfless members who mamish do so much for Klal Yisrael each and every day. And the Daf is also a late-breaking sponsorship. The Daf this morning is sponsored by my wife Aviva and I in honor of the birth of our grandson, Baruch Hashem, at 2:30 this morning, born to our children Avram and Zisi Silber in Lakewood, New Jersey. A mazel tov, mamish, tremendous chos. Baruch Hashem for our mishpacha. Halavai, his parents should be zocha to be magadlim l'torah l'chuppah l'maisim tovim u'la'achniso beviso she'Avram Avinu bizmano, and we shall all be zocha emerat Hashem to beautiful Yiddish nachas from our children. So with that, let us begin. Today's daf is Nun Tes 59, and we are picking up Eretz Hashem we actually started the Mishnah on 58b Nun Ches Amud Beis. So, because we were closing out yesterday's daf a little bit in a faster pace, what I wanted to mention is the Mishnah now is transitioning a little bit to a different topic. Up until now, we've been focusing on the concept of chazaka as establishing ownership over property. In this Mishnah, really what's happening over here, this discussion of chazaka is really focused ultimately again on establishing chazaka for a particular right of usage. Lav dafka, not for the property per se, but for a particular right of usage. So for example, again, the Mishnah said again, just highlighting, so let's just start the Mishnah again quickly. Hamarzev ein lo chazaka, ve'yishlam kol lo chazaka. So marzev, a downspout. So again, downspout, we don't know exactly what this statement means. We'll see what it means in the Gemara. But a downspout, so you cannot go ahead and establish a chazaka for having a downspout on someone's property. But ultimately, again, you can establish a chazaka for the place in which the downspout is situated. Hamaschila, a gutter. Yeshla chazaka, does have a chazaka. Now, we'll say, again, just on a most basic level, the distinction between a gutter and a downspout is a gutter, well, physically, the gutter runs across the top of the building. Downspout is the spout that extends downward, right? And then again, the other piece, which is the more significant piece for our Mishnah, is that a gutter was often fixed in place, whereas a downspout was often movable. So the Gemara says, "Sulam Mitzri no chazaka, l'tzuri yesh chazaka." An Egyptian ladder, no chazaka. A tzuri ladder does have a chazaka. Chalon hamitzris ein lechazaka, l'tzuri yesh chazaka. Literally, again, an Egyptian window, you don't have a chazaka for it, but a tzuri window you do. Ezi chalon hamitzris. What is an Egyptian window? A window that's so small that you can't fit your head through it. Rabbi Yehuda says, "Im yeshla melamein afapi she'ein rosho shel adam yachal likanes lesocha harizu chazaka." Rabbi Yehuda says if it has a frame, so the window, it's a framed window, even if it's so small that you can't fit your head into it, ultimately, again, it still establishes chazaka. Now, again, what's like chazaka in each of these cases means something different. I'm going to go through this now in the Gemara. So let's analyze. Let's start with the downspout. What does that mean for the downspout? So just to illustrate what this means, right? So what's happening over here is I have my downspout is extending into someone's property, right? That's what's occurring over here. So now it's been that way for 3 years, and it's been uncontested. So the Mishnah says, I don't have a chazaka to have my downspout go into someone's property, but yet there is a chazaka for the space. So the Gemara says, what does that mean? How exactly do you understand that? So we're going to see 3 different interpretations of this statement. Interpretation number 1, Amr Shmuel. So Amr Yehuda Amr Shmuel, Hachin Kamar, Hamar Zev Ein Lo Chazaka Min Ruach Achos, V'Yeshlam Komo Chazaka Min Shnei Ruchos. So Shmuel says it means like this. I have a chazaka that I have the ability to have a downspout extend into Reuven's property. So again, I will say, by the way, I just want to point out, this is a big topic. I know we had this with our building, which is the ability to what they call sheet water onto someone else's property. right? So that the Gemara says, so now I have a house, I have a downspout. My downspout extends into Reuven's property. It's the water is going into Reuven's property. So now Shmuel says it means like this. I have a right, once that right has been established for 3 years, I just point out, it's fascinating how, I find these things very interesting because it's in my life now. If you notice, by the way, if you walk outside of the side of the building, you'll see something very interesting. You can see the gutter system is there. If you notice, the gutter system goes into the ground. Gone are the days, the good old days, in the Alterheim, when you used to just sheet water onto other people's property. Now, so again, water systems, rainwater systems are much more complex. They have to tie into sewer systems. So if you notice now, for example, right, it used to be, and you have this still at your house, right? You have a gutter, and what happens to your gutter? Like there's a downspout, and it just opens up, flows onto your lawn, maybe onto your neighbors if you don't like them, right? onto your lawn or whatever, onto somewhere else. If you go outside, you can see right out over here. So the water, the gutters go into this thing, and it goes into the ground. It's fascinating. There's no water sheeting off the building. There's a much bigger building, but there's no water sheeting. Now, if you notice again, our water actually sheets onto Baltimore Hebrew. That's what happens. That's the way it was. Whatever it was when the building was. It's just fascinating. So the Gemara says over here, if my downspouts, if my water sheets onto Reuven's property, if that goes uncontested for 3 years, I establish that chazaka. Now the difference is that halacha l'maisa, what I don't establish, let's say my downspout is on there's the gutter, and my downspout was just, for argument's sake, on the right side of the gutter. On the right side of the gutter. So that I don't have a right to claim it's got to be on the right. If Reuven says you have to move it to the left, then he has a right to say that. So that's the idea. I have a chazaka for the makom. In other words, I've established a chazaka that I can have a downspout of water sheet off onto Reuven's property. What I don't have a chazaka on is where the downspout is. That's Shmuel's approach. Rabbi Chanina Amar is so fascinating. Rabbi Chanina Amar, Hamarzeit ein lo chazaka, sha'im haya aruch mekatzro, ve'yishim kama chazaka shimbala akra ein akro. Rabbi Chanina says it means like this, that Reuven has the ability to say, Silber, right now your downspout is very long. I don't want it to be that long, whatever it is, the aesthetics, whatever it might be, so I need you to cut the downspout. That he's allowed to say. What can't he say? He can't say remove the downspout. Now again, just to be clear, Reuven can say remove the downspout. Right? When can he say remove the downspout? When can he say that? During the 3 years. In other words, before I establish chazaka. What we're saying over here is, if I've been doing this for 3 years and it's been uncontested, the common denominator between Rabbi Huda and Shmuel is, Rabbi Chanina and Shmuel is, I establish the right then to sheet that water onto Reuven's property. What Reuven has the right to do is to say, according to Shmuel, move the downspout. You got to move it. Or according to Chanina, shorten the downspout. But he can't tell me to remove it. Incredible. Rabbi Yirmiyah bar Abba, Rabbi Yirmiyah says, Hamarzeit ein lo chazaka. What does that mean? What does it mean? The downspout doesn't have a chazaka. Shemrot livnos tachtov boneh. So also what that means is very interesting. Let's say Reuven wants to build underneath my downspout. So the halacha is he's allowed to do that. Now again, whatever he's going to do with the water, he's going to have to figure that out, right? But lamaisi, he has a right to build under my. In other words, this would also work beautifully in terms of, let's say again, I have a short downspout, I have a gutter and a little zach. That's the technical term, right? That comes out. That's my downspout. So Reuven has the right to build under it if he wants to. But again, halacha might have established the chazak of having a downspout. In that, again, Reuven can't demand that I remove it. So therefore, I both say, it's a very strong similarity in the position. So again, the Mishnah tells me that once I have a downspout for 3 years and it's uncontested, I establish a chazaka. The lashon of the Mishnah is, I establish chazaka for the makam, for the place, but not ultimately, again, for the marziv itself. What does that mean? According to Shmuel, it means I have the right to have a downspout, but Reuven can dictate where the downspout is. According to Rabbi Chanina, I could have a downspout, but if it's long, Reuven could order me to shorten it. And according to Rabbi Yirmiyah bar Abba, that if I have a chazaka to have a downspout, but if Reuven wants to build under it, he can, but he cannot command me to go or order me to go ahead and remove it. Okay, incredible. Nun Tetzalot 59a. So Tanan. So let's go back to the Mishnah. What did the Mishnah say? Hamaschila yesh la chazaka. So on the other hand, the Mishnah contrasted a downspout with a gutter. That as opposed to the downspout that does not establish chazaka, but the lashon of the Mishnah was that the downspout doesn't have chazaka, but its place, its makom, does have chazaka. The Mishnah just says that a gutter has chazaka. So let's analyze this. So as according to, ultimately, again, the first two opinions of Shmuel and Rabbi Chanina, this makes sense. That halacha l'maisa, according to Shmuel, that wherever you place the gutter, that's it. It establishes chazaka there. And according to Rabbi Chanina, if the gutter is whatever the size of the gutter, I establish chazaka for that. But I will say, according to Rabbi Yirmiyah bar Abba, so again, if we're talking about a case where the gutter is there, right? According to Rabbi Yirmiyah bar Abba, he said that the downspout case was a case of where Reuven wants to build under my downspout. So I can't stop him from doing that, but he also can't order me to fully remove the downspout. But according to the gutter case, what would be the parallel case in the gutter case? When we say that a gutter has a chazaka, so then what does that mean? That Reuven can't build underneath it? Let Reuven build underneath it. My nafkamina mina. In other words, if I have a gutter and Reuven wants to build underneath the gutter, who cares? In other words, what does that matter to me? Tzion Maron says, no, I'll tell you why it matters. Hacha b'maschila shel binyan askin. We're talking about a stone gutter. What's the issue with the stone gutter? So the Gemara says, da amar le lo necha le de tisra ishtoi. So also the problem with the stone gutter is that if Reuven's going to be building underneath it, there's the vibrations from the building, right? The vibrations from the building, and the vibrations from the building could adversely impact the stone gutter. So therefore, again, halacha l'maisa, I have the ability to claim that I have a chazak on the gutter, and therefore Reuven can't do anything that would adversely impact my gutter. Okay, incredible. Amar Yehuda Shmuel. So I'll say, so again, I just want to point out, halacha l'maisa, we actually accept, this is actually one of these nice gemaras where we accept all three of these interpretations, Shmuel, Rabbi Chanina, and Rabbi Yirmiyah bar Abba. So Rabbi says, so piece of halacha l'maisa number one is if I have a downspout that goes into Reuven's property, and that downspout remains there for 3 years uncontested, I have the right to that downspout. Now, Reuven, as the owner of the property upon which the water is being sheeted, ultimately has rights as well. What are his rights? He could order me to move the position of or I should say the location of the downspout, right? He can go ahead and order me to shorten the downspout, right? And he could go ahead and build underneath the downspout. What he can't do is, after 3 years of uncontested downspout use, he can't order me to stop sheeting the water onto his property. Fascinating. Now, say, listen to this case. Amar Yehuda Shmuel. This is fascinating. Sino hamikaleach ma'im lechatzer chavero uba balagag l'sosmo. Okay, so I'll say, so now look at the interesting twist in this case. Let's go back. I have a downspout, right? My downspout sheets water onto Reuven's property. It's been doing that for 3 years. Reuven's never contested it, so therefore, based on the Mishnah, what's the halacha? I have a chazaka for that use. Okay? I'm doing now some home improvements, some home renovations, and the truth is, I don't need that downspout anymore. I want to plug it up or put it somewhere else. Reuven comes along and says, no, I don't want you to plug it up. See, I will say, one of the interesting pieces of the story is Reuven benefits from the water being sheeted onto his property. Reuven has animals that graze. They have what to drink. It makes the grass very nice. So now Reuven wants to block me from stopping up from removing the downspout. See, you hear this? Right? A little bit of a plot twist over here. Right? So up until now, we've always been focused on my right to sheet the water. Now the Gemara says, okay, but now let's say I no longer want that downspout, but Reuven, the property, right, the one who receives the water on his property, he says, I've also established a chazaka. Listen to this. The Gemara says, so I have literally a pipe, a downspout, that sheets water onto my friend's property. And now I want to plug up my downspout. Reuven, the owner of the property, could prevent me from doing so. Why? Because he could say to me, same way, so Reuven says to me, Silver, the same way that you've established a right to sheet water onto my property. So the Gemara says, I have acquired the right of the water that flows onto my property. In other words, Chazaka has given you a right to sheet the water right onto my property, and I have acquired the Chazaka of receiving the water. So therefore, very nice. You want to plug up the downspout? No, because if you plug up the downspout, that's ultimately going to share my benefit and my Chazaka. What a great case. Great case. So we'll say, so now what do you do with this? What do you do with this? So here, interestingly enough, Rabbi Yehuda saying in the name of Shmuel, he's making a statement. And his statement is, Reuven has the right to block me from stopping up or from moving to the downspout. So Itmar. So Itmar said, let's discuss this. Rabbi Shia Amar Ma'akev. Rabbi Chama Amar Eina Ma'akev. So Rabbi says, Machlokes. Rabbi Shia says that Reuven could stop me from removing the downspout. And Rabbi Chama says, Eina Ma'akev. No, Reuven can't stop me from moving the downspout. So Rabbi says, so again, what happened over here? So Azal Shaile Rabbi Bisa. So they went and they asked this Shaila of Rabbi Bisa. So just want to point out over here. So we're going to see in just a moment, all three of these people are related, right? So Rabbi Bisa was the grandfather of Rabbi Shia, and Rabbi Shia was the grandfather of Rabbi Shia, who was the son of Rabbi Chama. So essentially, Rabbi Bisa was the father of Rabbi Chama, who was the father of Rabbi Shia. So again, this machlokes Rabbi Shia and Rabbi Chama is the machlokes father and son. So machlokes over here. So they go to the Zayda. Rabbi Zayda, what should we do? Amar lahu ma'akev. And ultimately, again, Rabbi Bisa says, no, Reuven has a right. Reuven has acquired the right. It's fascinating, right? He has the right of having the water flow onto his property, and therefore he could prevent, or Reuven could prevent me from going in and stopping it up. So we'll say, it's actually quite beautiful. So Kari Alei, Rabbi Bar Chama, right? So we'll say, Rabbi Bar Chama saw this. And we'll say, what Rabbi Bar Chama seen this? Rabbi Bar Chama saw a grandfather, a son, a father, a son, and a grandson having a machlokes in halacha, right? So Rabbi Bisa, the Zayda, Rabbi Chama the son, and Rabbi Ushia the grandson, right? All having a machlokes. And Rabbi Bar Chama sees this and he says, wow, v'achut hamashulash lo b'mehera yinosek. The 3-ply cord is not frayed easily. I will say that to see a family where 3 generations are steeped in Torah, to see a family where 3 generations, I will say, do you understand what this means? To have a family where father, son, and grandson are all mentioned on the same page of Gemara. Sarah Bachama says, that's amazing. That is absolutely amazing. And I will say, what's the chap? The chap is if you could establish, this is an interesting idea like this. The Aruch HaShulchan brings down an opinion. Generally, we write to the machlokes about how does one fulfill the mitzvah of of having children. So right, Beis Shammai says 2 boys, Beis Hillel says a boy and a girl. So it's a boy and a girl. Okay, so we paskin like Beis Hillel, that once a person has a boy and a girl, they have fulfilled the mitzvah of Perivaridia. There's an Aruch HaShulchan. The Aruch HaShulchan brings down that in reality, one doesn't fulfill the mitzvah Perivaridia until they have grandchildren. Only once you have grandchildren. Why? What's the Aruch? No, we don't have to do no paskin this way. But he just quotes this quite fascinating. What's the pshat? The pshat is because once a person establishes 3 generations, hopefully again of Torah, of Yiras Shamayim, that's when a legacy is complete. 3, and that's based on the pasuk. V'achut hamashulash lo b'mehera yinosek. The 3-ply cord, Shlomo says, the 3-ply cord is not quickly undone. So this idea so here Rabbi Bar Chama sees this, and he sees this is incredible. A father, a son, Rabbi Bisa, Rabbi Cham, Rabbi Oshi, a father, a son, a grandson, all together, arguing in Gemara. Let's say Rabbi Bar Chama was very, very taken by this incredible sight. I will say, I'll just mention, Zer Rabbi Yoshia, Benosh Rabbi Chama, Benosh Rabbi Bisa. So let's say Tilson points out just quickly. We don't have time for it. I know, but you're forcing my hand, so we'll do it. So let's say take a quick look at Tilson. Just a very beautiful and sweet Tilson. Tilson says, "V'achotem shloshim meher yinosek." So the Gemara says, "Kama hayu shein levavoseim va'avos avoseim hayu tamidei chachamim v'lo kamar aleim v'achotem shulash." So let's say Tilson says, "I don't understand." Rabbi Chama makes it like this is a novelty. Baruch Hashem, this is not such a novelty. There are plenty of families that have multiple generations of Talmidei Chachamim. Plenty of families that have multiple generations of Yirei Shamayim. So what Rabbi Bar Chama makes out, this is the most incredible thing I've ever seen. Right? Rabbi Bisa, Rabbi Chama, Rabbi Oshia, 3 generations of Chut B'Shlosh. So Tosa says, again, Baruch Hashem, this is not a rarity. This is not a rarity, right? This is okay, I'm not going to say, I don't know if you could say like a common occurrence, but common enough that it's not a rarity. Sorry about how I make it such a big deal. So as the Lukatosa says, he says, Elohacha hainu taima lefisha shloshtan ra'u ze'et zeh. V'hadumas Rabosai. Tosa says, no. Do you know what's incredible about this, Rabosai? To have 3 generations in the mishpacha that ultimately again are Tamidei Chachamim, Yirei Shamayim, Lomdei Torah, Ovdei Hashem. You're right, Baruch Hashem, that's not uncommon. But to have 3 generations that interact with each other, that saw each other, that knew each other, that's big. That's big. And that's what Rebbe Bar Chama was really overwhelmed by. This idea that father, son, and grandson coexisted, saw each other, lived at the same time, learned with one another, existed on the same page of Gemara, that Rabbi Bar Chama felt was an overwhelming and incredible gift. And I will say again, it's something that we have to think about as well, that in our own lives, how, people make the joke about, kind of grandparenting, that the nice part is, you get to kind of do what you want and then give the kids back. It's fantastic. So say, grandparent has an awesome responsibility to set a tone for a mishpacha as well. That parenting is not done when your children have children. Again, you have to parent in a different way. You have to be you have to be careful, what input you have in grandparenting. But Lamaisi, see from this Gemara that a grandparent still has an awesome obligation to set a spiritual tone for the greater mishpacha. And if you're able to do that, the Aruch HaShulchan says, then you fulfill Peri Verivya, and then you truly create that 3-ply cord. Incredible. All right, let's go right there. So, an Egyptian ladder doesn't have chazaka. So we'll say, remember again, just to illustrate what that means. I place a ladder in Ruvain's property. I leave it there for 3 years. I claim now I've established a chazaka on usage. Remember again, I'm not claiming ownership over the property. It's Ruvain's property. But I'm saying because I left my ladder there for 3 years uncontested, so lemaisa, again, I've established a right of usage. So the Mishnah says, there is no chazaka with an Egyptian ladder. Says what's an Egyptian ladder? So it's any ladder that does not have 4 rungs. So if you can imagine, it's like a step ladder. In other words, anything so small that essentially is portable doesn't establish chazaka. Because Reuven sees my ladder there, and what is he thinking? Right? First, he's probably thinking, Silver is a jerk. You just get your stuff out of my yard. But it doesn't bother him that much to say anything because, hey, it's just a step stool. It's just a step ladder. Like it doesn't matter. Therefore, there's no chazaka. On the other hand, right? Let's say both say, so now. You understand again, on the other hand, by the way, the Gemara doesn't go through it, but you understand when it says tsuri. A tsuri ladder apparently was a bigger ladder. So a big ladder, which was a bit more permanent in nature, that I can establish chazaka if it's there for a prolonged amount of time, uncontested. So again, an Egyptian window does not have a chazaka. So what is this case? Here's the case. Mostly going back, remember again, we saw earlier in the Gemara the concept of hezek re'iyah, this idea of ocular damage. The ability to see into someone else's property is a damaging force. So therefore, again, the question is over here, I want to construct a window in my house. So that's what I'm happening over here. Right? Reuven and I, we're neighbors. I want to construct a window in my house that has the ability to see into Reuven's property. So the Mishnah said, Cholon ha-mitzri ein la chazaka. An Egyptian window, which apparently, according to the Gemara, is a tiny window. So small you can't even put your head through it. So therefore, again, there's no chazaka in that. So the Gemara says, so the idea over here is because it's so small, so therefore again there's no chazaka. So Mashna Gabi Sulam Dlo Mefarish, or Mashna Gabi Cholon Mefarish. So we'll say, so why is it ultimately again by Sulam HaMitzri, right, where the Mishnah doesn't give a definition, yet by Cholon HaMitzri, it does give a definition. Right? In other words, the Mishnah defines what an Egyptian window is, but the Mishnah did not define what an Egyptian ladder is. Why that distinction? The Gemara says very simple. So the Gemara says, Mishum the Kabai Iflugi Rabbi Huda v'Seifa. Because since Rabbi Huda was going to argue in the Seifa, so therefore again we had to give a definition as to what Cholin Am Yisrael was. I'm Rabbi Zera. Lamata medalid Amos yesh lo chazaka v'yachol limchos. Lamala me arba Amos in lechazaka v'yachol limchos. So let's listen to this. Rabbi Zera says like this: If I'm putting in a window in my property, I'm putting in a window, right? So again, we'll say, remember what we've seen is the whole chap with windows is. You can't claim that, hey, I'm operating in my property, I can do whatever I want. Because if I'm doing something that impedes the use of my neighbor's chutzner, then ultimately I'm not allowed to do that. So putting in windows that were not there before gives me additional visual access into Ruvain, my neighbor's property, and that could be halachically problematic. So now watch this. Rabbi Zera says like this: if I'm putting in a window, lamata midalad amas, right? So within dalad amas of the ground, yesh lo chazaka. So we'll say so yesh lo chazaka means that if I do that and that goes uncontested for 3 years, I have established chazaka that I could keep that window there. But on the other hand, yachol limchos. But Ruvain has the ability to object to that. Right? Reuven can say, Silber, I don't want you putting in that additional window, right? Because now you have additional visual access into my property, and that impedes the use of my property. What if I put in a window that is taller than Dalet Amos? So just to illustrate that, that means a window that is above 6 feet, right? It's more than 6 feet off the ground. So Shabbos says, so that there is no, I don't establish a chazaka for that. Now, the reason I don't establish a chazaka for that is tied to the Ein Yachol Limchos is Reuven doesn't really have the ability to object. Why doesn't he have the ability to object? Because they'll say, since it's so high, I'm not going to be able to see out of it. In other words, if it's above 6 feet, that doesn't really enhance my visual access to Reuven's property because it's so above eye level. So because of that, it doesn't really have any negative effect on Rabbi Eloi. Rabbi Eloi says, no. Afilo lamala me'arba amos eno chazaka v'yachol limchos. So Rabbi Eloi says like this: even above Dalet Amos, I don't establish chazaka. Now the reason I don't establish chazaka is that halacha l'maisa again, Reuven's failure to object doesn't necessarily represent his consent because he might have thought that, hey, it's not a big deal because it's above the range of visual damage. On the other hand, v'yachol limchos, he does have the ability to object to me putting it in to begin with. So the Gemara says, so what's the machlokes over here? So lema bekolfen amidas dom kamiflagi. So I will say maybe what they're arguing about is actually fascinating is, can we force a person regarding midas dom? Now what does midas dom mean like this? So midas dom means, midas dom I will say is, when you object to someone doing something even though it has absolutely no negative effect on you. Right? In other words, so I'll say, so again, Reuven's doing something, or I'm doing something, it has zero detrimental effect on Reuven. But yet, Reuven still has the halachic right to go ahead and object, so he objects. So we'll say that's called midas dom. You're just being obstinate for the sake of being obstinate, right? With no benefit. In other words, if I object to something because something is adversely impacts me, or I object to something because maybe I'm being deprived of a benefit, okay, I'm entitled to do that. But to object to something just for the sake of halachically objecting because I have the right to do so, when I'm not getting anything from the objection, that's midas dom. So the question is, do we force a person, when a person is essentially acting like a sodomite, right? Do we go ahead and force them to go ahead and stop it? What we call kolfen midas dom. The Gemara says, so I'll say, so where does this come up? This would come up ultimately, again, if I'm building a window above Dalet Amos. Right? So I'm building a window 6 feet high, and now Reuven wants to object. Come on. Right? It's not. I'm not looking into your property because it's too high. Right? So now, but Reuven saying, but maybe one day you could look through it, or maybe something could do something good. So we'll say, so the shaila is, in that kind of case, do we say, Reuven, you're being a sodomite, right? And therefore, right, you're being the guy from Stone, and therefore, again, no, it doesn't sound right to you being a sodomite, but you understand, right? Using the expression, right? But Lamaisa, again, so do we force Reuven essentially to say, stop it? So the Gemara says, Mar Savar Kolfin, Mar Savar in Kolfin. The Gemara says, no, Lo D'chuli Ama Kolfin. I will say, in general, we paskin Kolfin on midas dom. If we see that someone is just being a jerk, and someone is just exercising a right, even though, again, it doesn't make any sense, we will force them to behave nicely. That's not the question over here. Shani Yacha, this case is different. So we'll say, if that's the case, then why can't I put in a window that is above Dalet Amos? Why should Reuven be able to object to that? This case is a little bit different. Watch this. V'shayni hacha, the amarle zimnin demosvis sharshifa tusach, V'kaimas, v'kachazis. So I will say because Reuven can make a legitimate claim. Reuven can say, you're right. I know. Right now the window is above Dalet Amas. But what's to stop you from bringing a bench, standing up on the bench, and looking into my chazar? In other words, Reuven's got. I understand right now, right? If you quote unquote behave normally, this window is above visual range, and therefore again does not represent any potential for visual damage against me. Hezek re'iyah. But you could easily take a chair, stand up on it, and look out the window. So because of that, it does represent Hezek re'iyah. So I'll say, so that's the machlokes. Essentially, again, it's kind of like, do we look at the window for what it is now? Do we look at the window how it could potentially be exploited and used? That's the fundamental machlokes. So it happens to be passing Rabbi Eloi that again, when it comes to a window, even if the window is above Dalet Amas, ultimately Reuven can object to that. He does have the ability to go ahead and make a machol and prevent me from doing it. Incredible story. Huda asla kamid Rabbi Ami. Right, there was a guy who went ahead and came up for Rabbi Ami. Shadre le kamid Rabbi Abba bar Mamo. And he's supposed to say, so apparently again, he came before him with this particular case, right? With this particular case of a window, lemala midalid. So he sent him before. So Shaj lekamid Rabbi Amma bar Mamo, Amar le Avid leik Rabbi Eloi. We pass like Rabbi Eloi. Amar Shmuel ulo ora filu kol shu yesh lo chazaka. So first of all, like we just said before, we pass like Rabbi Eloi, and therefore again, Reuven can make a machol. He can go ahead and object to a window even above Dalet Amas out of fear that, again, I could bring a bench and look through the window. There could be visual damage. So I'll say, but there is an important caveat. Rabbi Shmuel says that if the window is being put in for light purposes, afilu kol shu yesh lo chazaka, then even the smallest of windows, ultimately, again, I can establish a chazaka. Take a look at the Rashbam for just a moment. It's about 6 lines up from the bottom. If I construct a window in order to go and allow light into a dark room, the chalon ha'asui la'ora milsa dikviusa, the chal hayomim adam tzarich la'ora. Because understand the difference also between the Egyptian ladder and the Suri ladder was the same difference between the difference between the Egyptian window and the Suri window was the same distinction between the Egyptian ladder and the Suri ladder, which is a din in permanence. When a window was so small, just like a ladder that was so small, the window could be easily filled in. Right? Therefore, there's no permanence. Because there's no permanence, there's no chazaka. Same thing with the ladder. When the window was larger, like the Tsurian, when the window was larger, like the Tsurian ladder, Tsurian window, it's like the Tsurian ladder. The size of it, right, creates a permanence, and in a sense, the permanence creates chazaka. The Gemara now just gives an exception to that rule, which is a light window, an illumination window. So an illumination window, even if it's small, like an Egyptian window, still establishes chazaka. Why? Because since it is utilitarian in nature, it's necessary. The necessity establishes permanence. So therefore, again, if you clearly have a window that is not just to look at, but you have a window that allows light in, even if it's small, ultimately, again, the utilitarian nature of that window establishes chazaka on that window. Incredible. Fine. So the Mishnah goes weiter. Haziz atevach yesh lo chazaka. So what's the interesting case over here? I'm Reuven's neighbor. Right? These are all cases of neighborly relations. So what happens over here? I have a beam. My beam extends into Reuven's property. I will say now, so here's what's interesting. So you see the progression of our topics. In the beginning, we're talking about establishing chazaka, ownership over land. We now transition in the last Mishnah to establishing chazaka over usage. Not over the land, not over title, but over usage. Now we're going to chazaka over airspace. So I have a beam from my house that extends into Reuven's airspace. So aziz ad tefach yesh lo chazaka saloch l'maisa. If my beam extends at least a tefach into Reuven's airspace, and it's there for 3 years uncontested, I have established a chazaka. Now get a say. Remember, anytime someone encroaches onto your property in any way, you always have a right to say, no. That's a machal. You always have a right to do that, right? So therefore, again, if my beam extends, I'm doing home improvements, my beam extends into Reuven's property, Reuven knocks on my door, sometime within that first 3 years says, get that out of here, he has a right to do that. I don't have a right to use his airspace. But here we're talking about a case where the beam extended a tefach, or at least a tefach into Reuven's airspace, and he did not say anything for 3 years. So now, what's occurred as a result of that? I've established chazaka. So aziz ad tefach yesh lo chazaka. So the Gemara says, I'm a beis, will say, I'm a beis, v'yochol limchos. Right? But ultimately, again, remember, but within those first 3 years, Reuven has the ability to go ahead and make a macha. Let's say, it's just interesting, by the way. Think about this very quickly. Like, what is the hashkafa of these halachas, right? I don't know. If I was writing the halacha, I would say that if somebody is utilizing my property, it doesn't matter whether I say something or I say something in 10 years from now. It's my property. It's my property, right? So I should have a right to say, get out of here whenever I want. What does it matter when I exercise it? It's mine. So I say, it could very well be like, almost like there's a profound hashkafa on all of this, which is how we relate to our possessions, right? So it's important to understand that at the end of the day, the concept of ownership in and of itself is a little bit of an illusion. Everything belongs to the Ribono Shel Olam. Hashem ha'aretz umloah. Kadosh Baruch Hu owns everything. The difference just is that I am the custodian. Kadosh Baruch Hu gives me certain things to hold on to and to utilize in the right way. It's almost as if that hashkafa is reinforced with these halachas. That, if you think about it, it's almost like crazy. Someone's using my property. I didn't object for 3 years. So now he establishes a right. Why does he establish a right? It's mine. It's mine. And the answer is because on a deeper hashkafic level, it's not mine. It's not mine. Nothing's really mine in this world. I will say, this is this week's parasha. The only thing that really belongs to you in this world, right? I will say, it's incredible, right? Your relationships are not yours. Because relationships could come and go. Even the people we love the most in this world, you don't own them. You don't own the people, you don't own the relationships, you can't control it, and you can't hold on to it. The only thing you own in this world is your ruchnius. That is the only thing that is yours. That's this week's parasha. What does Moshe Rabbeinu say to Klal Yisrael? V'yato Yisrael. That Klal Yisrael. Ma Hashem Elokecha shoa mi'imach ki im liyira. What does Hashem ask of you? The only thing Hashem asks of you is to build a spiritual identity. Because that is the only thing, Chaverim, that you own. Everything else in this world, you might have custodianship over, you might have some level of possession over, but you have absolutely no ownership over it. Your money, today it's yours, tomorrow we all know it could come and go. Your job, your profession, your career, you may be at the top of your game today, you could lose everything tomorrow. Your relationships unfortunately come and go. People live and people leave this world, right? All different kinds of things. You can't hold on. The only thing you can hold on to, the only thing that is yours, that is mamish yours, the olam void, is your ruchnius. That is the only thing that is yours. And I will say, how ironic is it that we spend so much time focusing on the things that are we don't really own, and yet we don't spend enough time focusing on building the one thing I truly own. I think that's reflective in the laws of chazaka. Chazaka is like a little bit of like this, it's like a little bit of like a shtach. You think it's yours? You think it's yours? It's not yours. It's not really yours. After 3 years, if you don't say anything, it becomes mine. What? It's mine. So my being extended into Reuven's property for 3 years. Reuven didn't say anything, right? Whatever. He was watching Netflix. He was binging for 3 years. See, he never said anything. So suddenly now it's mine. Yeah, that's the way it works. But it's his. No, it's not really his. Not really his. It's not really mine. It's not really anyone's. So I'll say that I think is the powerful musar of these chazak ideas. Not even. The Gemara goes right there. But if my beam extends less than a tefach, there is no chazaka. I was going to say there is no chazaka because that is an insignificant amount, and therefore again, still in yochel limchos. So I will say something so insignificant. Reuven doesn't even have the ability to object to that as well. Says Rabbi Yaakov Amramani, hichzik b'tefach, hichzik b'dalet. So also it's very interesting that ultimately again, so he says, and we'll clarify this, if I make a chazaka, my beam extends into Reuven's yard, into his property, 1 tefach, I've in fact established a chazaka for 4 tefachim. Says, what does that mean? My kamar Rabbi Yaakov, hichzik rochav tefach b'meshach arba, hichzik b'rochav arba. So let's listen to this. If I establish a chazaka on a beam extending into Reuven's property that has a width of a tefach with a length of 4 tefachim, I establish also the use of space for the similar width as well. In other words, once you establish the space Once you establish, let me say it differently. Once you establish the length, you automatically establish also the right to a corresponding width. So, for example, if I have a beam that extends 1 tefach of width with 4 tefachim of length, I also acquire the corresponding 4 tefachim of width. So the idea is the chazaka establishes for you an area. And that area is not necessarily just the amount in which the beam is extending now, but it's the corresponding length with area. Okay, but if my beam extends only less than a tefach, I don't have a chazaka, which also makes sense. In other words, it's so insignificant. Remember, when we say that I don't establish chazaka, what that means is it's so insignificant that it's not even worth it for Reuven to make a macha. Right? In other words, that's so what? My beam, what's less than a tefach? 2 inches? 2 inches. So, okay, so Reuven's not going to pay attention to that because it's insignificant. And therefore, again, but because he doesn't pay attention to it, I also don't establish chazaka. Amrav Huna, Loshan al balagag balachotzer. This is very interesting. This is talking about, again, the owner of the roof to the owner of the chotzer. Ava balachotzer bebalagag, yochol limchos. But ultimately, again, it's supposed to say, take a look at the Rashbam for just a moment. The Rashbam says, "Ela balagad shubal aziz balachotzer. Dini yochol limchos bo v'lomer al tishtamish. Ava balachotzer yochol limchos bebalagad shelo yotzi ziz pachos mitefach betchila." So Rabbi says, this is very interesting. So again, Rav Huna says like this, that the balagag, ultimately, again, doesn't establish chazak on the balachotzer. Right, but the balchotzer, balagag yochol limchos. Also, but the Reuven, the owner of the property, could object to my beam going into his property. Now, as we'll say, so remember again, we're establishing now that if my beam extends less than a tefach into Reuven's property, I don't establish chazaka. But if Reuven wants to go ahead and object to the presence of my beam, he has every right to do so. Rabbi Yehuda says no. Afilu balchotzer balagag ini yochol limchos. Rabbi Yehuda says not true. If the beam only extends less than a tefach, then Reuven doesn't even have the ability to object. So Shavuos, I say, here's the fundamental machlokes. Everyone is agreeing that if my beam extends less than a tefach into Reuven's property, I am not establishing chazaka. That's everyone agrees. The shaila is, does Reuven have the ability to object to a protrusion that's less than a tefach? Rav Huna says no. Rav Huna says no. Sorry, Rav Huna says yes, and Rabbi Yehuda says no. Fascinating machlokes. I says the Gemara lema. The hezek riyah kamiflagi. Maybe what they're arguing about, we'll say is hezek riyah. Now we'll say, now remember again, if I have a beam that is less than a tefach, so what is that beam used for? So B'pashas, the other thing it can be used for is like, I want to hang stuff from it. I want to hang my laundry from it. I want to hang a plant from it. That's what it's going to be used for. So maybe they're arguing about hezek riyah. Demar savar shmei hezek, Demar savar lav shmei hezek. Maybe they're arguing about whether or not hezek riyah is hezek or not. To which the Gemara says, "Lo dechule alma shmei hezek." Everyone agrees that hezek riyah is hezek. V'shayni hacha. In this case, is different. Why? The amalei l'tashmishta lo chazi, l'may chazi, l'misla ba midi. So we'll say this case is different. Everyone agrees that hezek riyah, right? Visual damage is damage. So what's the machlokes over here? This little beam protrusion, I will say, is not really usable for anything significant. So I'm not like getting up there and doing anything. The only thing it's usable for, as we said before, is to hang something from it. So I say to Reuven, don't worry, there's no hezek riyah. Why is there no hezek riyah? I can say like this. He says, Mehadrana apai v'talina bay. No problem. What am I going to do with it? I'm going to hang a plant from it. So you know what I'm going to do? When I go up there to hang the plant, you know what I'm going to do? I'm just going to turn away. I'll hang the plant like this. So therefore, again, I'm not even looking in your direction. It's easy. There's no hezek riyah. The other opinion says, no. You know, sometimes when you're up on a high level, I'm going to be nervous to look away, right? If I want to see exactly where I'm going, even though I'm not climbing up on a plane, I'm only extending my hand, but because I'm going to have to be standing on something at that heightened level, I'm going to be a little bit more vigilant, and therefore I'm going to end up looking into Reuven's property. So Bava says that's the halacha. So halacha l'maisa, by the way, the halacha l'maisa we paskin that obviously again we paskin that if I have a beam that extends into Reuven's chazer and it's more than a tefach and it's there uncontested for 3 years, I have established a chazaka on the use of the airspace. What if it's less than a tefach? If it's less than a tefach, there is no chazaka, and we paskin ultimately like Rav Huna that Reuven has the right to object to it, which makes sense. Anytime there's any level of encroachment on someone else's property, the owner of the property always has the ability to object. So in other words, I can't say, oh, come on, Reuven, come on. It's less than a tefach extending into your property. Stop it. No, Reuven can say, no, you have no right to extend it all into my property. So even if it's less than a tefach, Reuven has the right to say, remove that piece of the beam, and that's the halacha. Good. Mishnah. Lo yiftach adam chamarosav v'chatzar shutfin. So it's an interesting case over here. A person should not open up a window into a jointly owned chatzar. I will say now, again, we're going to talk about this. What this means is, so again, when we say open up a window, it's not what you think. It's not like open the window. Open the window means create a window. Create the window. A person should not create a new window in his home that opens up into a jointly owned chatzar. Lakach bayis b'chatzar acharis lo yiftachena b'chatzar shutfin. We'll say, now watch this. So now let's say I own a home, or I own a chatzar together with Reuven. And now I buy another home, a summer home, in the adjoining chatzar, right? In the adjoining chatzar. So I'll say, so now what do I want to do? So now I own two homes in two adjoining chatzeros. I want to open up an entrance from my new home into my former chatzar. The Gemara's Mishnah says you can't do that. Now I'll say, this is going to get into the interesting discussion about the problem with increasing pedestrian traffic into a chatzar. You're not allowed to do that. Similarly, again, if I put an addition on my house, I built an upper story. And I want to lease it out. I can't build an additional staircase on the side of the house that my tenants could reach the upper story without going through my house. Once again, that increases pedestrian traffic in the chutzner. And then we'll further clarify all of this. Ella imratza bona esacheder lifnei beso. Ubona aliyah al gabe beso. Post l'sachabay. So I'll say what this sounds like over here, what I could do, and we'll see this more in the Gemara. Rather, what I could do is I could build an additional room inside of the house, build an addition on top of that room, and therefore, again, the people who live on the upper story can access the upper story through my home. Now, we'll have to clarify exactly how that particular case works, but Lamaisa, what the Mishnah seems to be indicating to us is that halacha Lamaisa, you can increase pedestrian traffic in the chatzar. Gemara. So the Gemara, let's go with the first halacha. What was the first halacha? You can't open up a new window into a jointly owned chatzar. So again, Reuven and I are neighbors. We live in a chatzar together. Mishnah says, I can't create a new window in my home to open into the chatzar, because obviously it's going to adversely impact Reuven. So the Gemara says, why are you bringing this up in the chatzar shutfin, a jointly owned chatzar? So the Gemara says, afilu chatzar chaveiro namilo. Even if it's not jointly owned property, I can't open up a new window into anyone else's adjoining property. You make this sound like this is a din in jointly owned property. This is a din, and whenever you have a neighbor, you can't create a new window that looks into someone else's property. To which the Gemara says, "Lomi bay kamar, lomi bay lechatzer lechavero delo." So we'll say it goes without saying that I can't open up a new window that looks into my friend's property. That's obvious. Aval chatzar shutfin da'amrei sof hakabois. It's the new yemina b'chatzar. So we'll say, but again, we'll say, we'll stop over here. I don't want to rush this. We'll stop. We'll pick up with this in Eretz YIsrael tomorrow. Shkayach everyone, what a daf, what a week, such a schus Baruch Hashem, incredible. First of all, a mazel tov. We have a double mazel tov today to two of our shir members, a mazel tov Shmuel Karapkin on the ufrav of his son this Shabbos, a mazel tov Rabbi Lerner on the ufrav of his son this Shabbos, a mazel tov Baruch Hashem to the chasanim, to the upcoming chasanas. Baruch Hashem continues simchas for our shir for all of Klal Yisrael. Shkayach everyone.